The phone rang at the exact moment the entire office fell silent, and one sentence from her made Ethan Carter feel like his breath had been squeezed out of him. He had just closed the day-end sales report, the pale white ceiling lights reflecting on the cold glass surface of his desk. Manhattan, beyond the window, was still blazing, traffic flowing like a metal river that never slept. Ethan sat upright, his shirt collar unbuttoned by one notch, a pen in his hand, unaware that in just a few seconds his life would split into a different direction. His phone buzzed, his wife's name lit up the screen. Sienna. Ethan answered, steady as always. "Hey, honey." On the other end, Sienna sounded steady too steady. Her voice was soft and light, as if she were talking about something completely harmless. But Ethan heard a strange smoothness in it, like a line she had practiced. "So, about the company party tonight." Ethan leaned back, eyes flicking to the wall clock. She had mentioned that party a few times all week, saying senior leadership would be there, that it was a chance to score points. Ethan had even planned to leave early to go with her. But Sienna continued, and her words dropped like a blade. "I think it is better if you do not come." Ethan paused, his fingers tightening slightly around the pen. "Why?" Sienna cleared her throat, still trying to keep everything normal. "Because Noah will be there. It will be awkward. You know, he used to be my ex." The air in the office seemed to drop another level. Ethan did not move, but deep inside something icy slid along his spine. Noah Blake. That name had surfaced in their arguments back when they were newlyweds. A handsome, talented, romantic ex, someone Sienna had said was long over. Ethan had believed her because he wanted to believe her, because 7 years of marriage could not be shattered by a shadow from the past. He set the pen down slowly, so slowly the sound of it touching the desk was painfully clear. "Noah works at your company." His voice stayed even, too even, like a gentle husband asking about work. On the other end, Sienna gave a small laugh. "Yeah, he joined a few months ago. I forgot to tell you." The words "forgot to tell you" were light as feathers, yet they pressed on Ethan's chest like stone. He felt his temples twitch, not from jealousy, but from a sharp realization. She had hidden something big, and she lied with terrifying ease. "A few months." "Yeah, I figured you did not need to worry. That party is boring anyway, just corporate obligation stuff. You would have more fun at home watching football." Sienna's voice was sweet. She was guiding him exactly where she wanted him. A good husband at home, a husband who did not show up, a husband who did not see anything. Ethan pressed his lips together. In his mind, dozens of small images from the past month flashed by. The sudden urgent overtime, the short clipped calls, the messages that disappeared the moment he entered the room, and Sienna's eyes, always lit by something he could no longer touch. But Ethan did not react. Work had taught him that sometimes silence was the sharpest weapon. He said lightly, as if it did not matter, "Yeah, you are right. I will stay home. Watch football, rest." A pause on the line. Then Ethan heard a tiny breath of relief. Sienna believed him. Great. "Okay then, darling. See you tomorrow. I love you. I love you." A sweet sentence like sugar coating a bitter pill. Ethan answered in the exact voice she wanted to hear. "I love you too." The call ended. Ethan sat still for a few seconds, watching the phone screen fade to black. In the office, the air conditioner became the only sound again. But inside Ethan, something else had started moving. Not loud, not explosive, just a silent decision locking into place like a gun being cocked. He opened his email. One message sat at the top, marked confidential. Subject, VIP guest invitation, Northbridge Media Annual Gala. Ethan clicked. The invitation text filled the screen, and one bold line stood out. "We are honored to welcome Mr. Ethan Carter, Regional Director overseeing the integration of Aurora Creative into Northbridge Media. Aurora Creative, Sienna's company." A very small smile touched Ethan's lips. Cold, calm, dangerous, Sienna did not know that 2 weeks ago the acquisition had been completed, and the man she thought was just an ordinary office worker, a husband who only worked hard and stayed quiet, was in fact the person behind that entire deal. Ethan was not flashy. He had never been flashy. Even when he had become a millionaire in the literal sense, he still lived simply, went to work like anyone else, so Sienna could feel their marriage was normal, warm, dependable. But not anymore. Ethan lifted the phone again and called the private line of the group CEO, Victoria Harrington. The female CEO's voice came through crisp and efficient. "Ethan, I have been waiting for your call." Ethan watched the city outside his window, lights reflecting in his eyes like shards of glass. "I confirm I will be there on time tomorrow night, and I want the head table." "Of course, we have arranged the seat of honor for you." Ethan paused, then added, as if casually, "My wife works in Aurora's marketing department. She does not know I will be there. I want to make a small surprise." Victoria laughed. "Oh, then it will be a very memorable night." Ethan gave a soft chuckle, but there was no warmth in it. "Yes, very memorable." After he hung up, Ethan leaned back, his eyes darkening. Somewhere in this city, Sienna was preparing for a night she thought she controlled. She thought Ethan would obediently stay home. She thought the game only had her and Noah, but she did not know that in this game, Ethan was the one who wrote the rules. And tomorrow night, he would walk into that room like a storm named Truth. No shouting, no jealous scene, just showing up on time and watching them collapse. That night, Ethan opened his closet as if opening a door into another version of himself. While Sienna believed he was staying home to watch football, he was choosing weapons for a reversal no one would be ready for. Their Manhattan apartment was so quiet he could hear the clock ticking. The living room lamp cast a warm yellow glow over the wedding photo on the shelf. In the picture, Sienna smiled brightly. Ethan stood beside her, eyes calm, full of trust. A beautiful moment. A life that had seemed settled. But now, everything in this home felt covered by a cold mist. Ethan stood at the closet, pulling out suits one by one. His hands moved slowly, carefully, like a man choosing clothing for a funeral. Because yes, some marriages do not die from arguments. They die from betrayal hidden for too long. He stopped at a dark navy suit, heavy fabric, sharply tailored. That suit had been with him in the biggest negotiation of his life, when he sat before the board and signed the acquisition of Aurora Creative. In that meeting room, many had looked at him like a shadow, someone there just to fill a seat. They had not known Ethan was the one with the final decision, a man underestimated but holding real power. He brushed the lapel lightly, like touching an oath. Tomorrow, he would wear it. Not to show off, but to remind himself he was no longer the man standing around waiting for truth to be handed to him. He would pull the curtain down himself. In the kitchen, the espresso machine hissed softly. Ethan poured a glass of water and took a sip. The cold water slid down his throat, doing nothing to cool the slow-burning heat in his chest. Humiliation did not explode like anger. It was a stone, silent, heavy, growing colder by the minute. Ethan sat on the sofa and opened his phone. Sienna's last message was still there. "See you tomorrow. I love you." He stared for a long time, then turned off the screen. In that moment, he replayed every sign from the past month, small pieces he had tried to ignore out of love, responsibility, and the naive belief that marriage could heal itself. Sienna became busy in a way that did not feel normal. Sudden overtime, emergency weekend meetings, stepping onto the balcony to take calls and turning her back the instant he approached. Late-night messages, the screen lighting up then going dark the second he glanced over. Coming home late with a hint of unfamiliar perfume in her hair, not her scent, not the scent of this home. Ethan had seen it. But he chose silence, because he wanted certainty. He did not want to become the kind of husband who went crazy on suspicion. He did not want cheap marriage drama where people scream, apologize, then repeat. He wanted clean truth, a verdict backed by evidence. This time he would not be the victim. He would be the one who wrote the ending. Ethan stood and walked into his home office. The room was small but orderly, like him. On the desk sat his laptop, folders, a few books on finance and management. He powered the laptop on, the screen brightening, and at the same time his mind became clearer than it had been all night. He opened contacts, his finger stopping on a name. Kevin Park. Ethan's old college friend, now in Northbridge's tech department, a guy who knew systems like the back of his hand. Ethan called. 1 ring, 2, then Kevin's sleepy voice. Ethan, damn, why are you calling at this hour? Ethan did not circle it. I need access to Aurora's HR portal and internal meeting room schedules. As soon as possible. Kevin went quiet for a beat. Then his voice dropped. This is about Sienna, isn't it? Ethan did not say yes, did not say no. He only answered with a sentence that told Kevin everything. I do not want to guess anymore. Kevin exhaled, like a friend realizing a tragedy was about to happen. Okay. I will send temporary login info and instructions. But Ethan, are you sure? Ethan stared out the window. Manhattan was still bright, but in his eyes the city suddenly looked foreign and cold, like a massive stage where people acted without realizing the audience had changed seats. Sure, his voice was calm, but under that calm was steel. I need the truth. I need it to end this the right way. Kevin spoke softer. Okay, I will do it now. And Ethan, if you need someone to talk to, I am here. Ethan nodded, even though Kevin could not see. Thanks. The call ended. Ethan sat in silence for a few seconds. For the first time that night his eyes stung slightly, not from weakness but because he realized what he had built for 7 years could collapse from one choice made by the woman he trusted most. But the tears did not fall. Ethan inhaled. He did not allow himself to fold. He opened another email marked high priority from the corporate legal office, an information packet he had reviewed during the acquisition. Internal policy, workplace conduct rules, investigation procedure. Simple, dry, but Ethan read it like a book of destiny. Somewhere, Sienna and Noah believed they were playing a secret game. They believed no one knew. They believed the company was a sealed box and meeting rooms had no eyes. But they forgot one thing. Northbridge had bought Aurora, and Ethan was the one overseeing the integration. If Ethan wanted, he could call compliance, request camera review, audit time logs, emails, expenses. He could blow it open in front of the entire company. He could turn it into a scandal, a demolition of reputations. But Ethan did not want noise. He did not need a crowd to witness his strength. He only needed to never be underestimated again. He only needed Sienna to see one thing, that the man she thought she could easily lead by the nose was actually holding the reins. Ethan returned to the closet and hung the dark navy suit in the center, perfectly straight. Beside it, a silver tie, his leather shoes already polished since the weekend, everything ready. He looked at that outfit like he was looking at a future drawing closer. Tomorrow, Sienna would walk into the party feeling like a winner, a wife who controlled her husband, a woman about to rise, about to score points in front of leadership. She would smile, she would lift her glass. She would stand beside Noah, and then Ethan would appear. Not as a husband attending a party, not as a naive man following his wife, but as the man everyone would stand up to greet. The new boss, the one in power, the one rewriting the rules. Ethan turned off the living room light. Darkness filled the apartment. But inside him, a small flame had just been lit. Not the flame of blind hatred, but the flame of clarity, of a man who knew how to save himself and how to end a story the best way. Ethan typed Noah Blake into the search box, and the screen handed him a truth sharp as a knife. In 1 second, 7 years of trust began cracking like thin glass. The New York sky was still misty. The high-floor apartment was quiet. only the coffee machine humming in the kitchen and wind scraping the window. Ethan had woken early, before the city shifted into its usual rush. He moved softly, like someone in a house with a sleeping child, not wanting to wake Sienna upstairs. She lay on her side, hair spread on the pillow in a familiar habit. Her face was still beautiful. Beautiful in a way that made it easy to forget that beauty could hide the deepest fractures. Ethan did not look long. He turned away. Sometimes, if you look 1 second more, your heart softens, and Ethan could not afford softness now. He set a cup of black coffee beside his laptop in the office and logged into Aurora Creative's HR system using the temporary account Kevin sent before dawn. On the screen, Aurora's logo appeared, familiar to Sienna like part of her life. But for Ethan, it had become a battlefield. He opened Employee Directory, paused, then typed, Noah Blake. Enter. The result appeared instantly, like the name had been waiting to be dragged into light. Noah Blake, age 32. Creative Director, Marketing Division. Start date, exactly 4 months ago. Ethan read it again and again. 4 months, not a few months like Sienna said. Not accidental, not forgetting. A lie wrapped in a smile. Ethan closed his eyes for a beat, cold sliding through his chest like ice water. But he did not stop. He clicked the profile. The resume looked clean, too clean. Noah had worked at a well-known agency in Los Angeles, then quit, unemployed for exactly 6 months before joining Aurora. A gap, long enough to go somewhere, restart something, or return to someone from the past. Ethan scrolled to team assignment. Project Horizon Rebrand. He opened it. The member list appeared, and on the third line, Sienna Carter sat right beside Noah Blake. Not a different team like she implied. Same team, same project, same day after day. Ethan's jaw tightened. If anyone saw him now, they would see a man in casual home clothes, hair slightly messy, under eyeshadows from lack of sleep. An ordinary husband? A man underestimated. But inside him, a machine was running, cold and precise like a corporate control room. He switched to organizational chart, boxes and lines, positions and connections. Noah's desk, Sienna's desk, only a few steps apart. Ethan gave a soundless smile. A perfect coincidence, too perfect to believe. He opened internal communication log. Immediately he saw what he needed, the internal emails and messages between Sienna and Noah. Many, too many. Not simple work exchange, not just sending files. One-word messages, long lunch hour threads, late-night chats, when a wife should have been with her husband in this home. Ethan did not read them all. He did not need to. Data did not lie. He switched to attendance records. Yesterday, Sienna checked in on time. Noah checked in minutes apart. Checkout, minutes apart. Ethan scrolled back. 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 4 months. Almost every day. Their time logs were 2 parallel lines never separating, moving together. Ethan exhaled slowly, carrying pain he had been forcing down. A part of him wanted to slam the laptop, run upstairs, shake Sienna awake, ask her directly. But he did not, because truth did not need tears to prove it. It only needed to be placed in the right light. He opened meeting room reservation system, filtered 3rd floor, small room. The results darkened his vision. Tuesday, Thursday, 4 to 5 in the afternoon. Repeating every week. The booking rotated between 2 names. Sienna Carter, Noah Blake. Ethan stared at those lines like a verdict, steady, disciplined, like the schedule of people who were practiced at hiding. He checked expense claims, trusting the instinct from last night. Then a chain of expense codes appeared. Client walkthrough, creative review, team alignment, beautiful labels like a boardroom deck, but Ethan saw what they really were. Small, repeated charges, a cocktail, a snack, a taxi, not large, but enough to show habit. A habit that did not belong to work. Ethan leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. Then he heard faint footsteps upstairs. Sienna shifting in bed. He closed the laptop immediately, like a man sliding a knife back into its sheath. His heartbeat did not race. It grew heavier. Sienna came downstairs minutes later in a cream silk robe, tying the belt as she walked, her face still sleepy. She smiled when she saw Ethan. "Good morning, love." Her voice was sweet, perfect, wife-sweet. Ethan looked up and returned a calm smile. "Good morning." Sienna stepped closer and kissed his cheek. Ethan caught her perfume, and in his mind an image of Noah standing close to her in that hallway snapped into place. An invisible touch, a fresh cut. Sienna poured coffee, leaning on the kitchen counter, asking casually, "What are you doing today?" Ethan answered slowly, "Just some paperwork. I want to finish before the weekend. And you." Sienna's eyes brightened. Then she quickly pressed the excitement down, like she feared showing too much. "The party tonight. I need to get ready. If I do well, there might be a new opportunity." Ethan looked at her. In his eyes, she was still the woman he once loved, but now she was also a woman living another life behind his back. He nodded, gentle voice, "Good for you, and good for both of us." Sienna smiled, sipping coffee. Ethan tilted his head and dropped a line as if absent-minded. "Noah will be busy preparing too, right?" Sienna froze for a single beat, so short most people would miss it. Ethan saw it like a crack in glass. "No, we are not on the same team. He handles creative stuff." Another lie. Ethan did not react. He just nodded as if convinced. "Yeah, that makes sense." Sienna exhaled, thinking it passed. She did not know Ethan already held a full map of her lies in his head, points and lines connected. And tonight, Ethan would turn those points into a picture the whole company would be forced to see. This was no longer a normal husband and wife story, not something for pity. It would be a lesson, a revenge story written in calm, and Ethan held everything he needed to end it. The hallway footage was only a few minutes long, but it was enough to kill everything Ethan had tried to protect for 7 years. The laptop screen cast a cold reflection into his eyes. In the grainy security camera frame on the 3rd floor, Sienna and Noah stepped out of the elevator. They walked so close their shoulders nearly touched. Nothing rushed, nothing clumsy. They moved naturally, like two people who knew this path, this space, each other. Noah tilted his head and said something. Sienna laughed, the sound not captured, but Ethan saw her lips curve. Then Noah's hand touched her lower back, lower than any professional gesture. Sienna did not avoid it. She leaned slightly toward him, like that was where she belonged. Ethan paused the video. The room was silent. Only the air conditioner and the deep beat of his heart. That beat was not frantic. It was heavy, slow, like a hammer striking truth at a steady rhythm. He leaned back, fingers interlaced, memories flooding in. Sienna, on their wedding day, holding his hand, promising she would never hide anything. Sienna, during his exhausted nights, resting on his shoulder and whispering that he was enough. Sienna, on recent late nights, turning away to text and saying it was just work. All of it became hollow sound now. And Ethan realized the most painful part was not that she betrayed him. It was that she betrayed him with skill. Ethan closed the laptop when he heard steps on the stairs. He stood and picked up the newspaper on the table like a well-rehearsed prop. A second later, Sienna appeared in the living room doorway, robe on, hair loosely pinned. Her face brightened as if she truly believed everything was fine. "Good morning, love." She walked over, kissed his cheek. That gesture used to feel warm. Today it felt cold. Ethan asked evenly, "Sleep well?" Sienna smiled. "I did. You're up early." Ethan folded the newspaper and set it down. "I have some things to do, and you." Her eyes flashed with excitement, then she forced it down. "The party tonight. I need to get ready. Senior leadership might be there. If everything goes well, I think I will be recommended for a new position." Her voice was soft, full of hope. Ethan knew she was not saying everything. Her hope was not just a title. Her hope was another life, with Noah beside her instead of Ethan. Ethan nodded. "Congratulations." Sienna poured coffee and asked casually, "You are still sure you are not coming, right?" Ethan looked at her, speaking slowly. "You said the party was boring." Sienna froze, then gave a strained laugh. "Boring for outsiders. But for employees it is different. It is networking. You get it." Ethan did get it. That was why she wanted him at home. He answered simply, "I will stay home." Sienna exhaled in relief. She thought she had removed the last obstacle. Ethan leaned back and said like he was just chatting, "Noah is helping set things up too." The air in the kitchen shifted. Sienna held still for one beat, her coffee cup almost suspended. "No, he is not on my team. He just handles ideas." Ethan smiled. "Then he must be very busy." Sienna nodded fast. "Yeah, very busy." Ethan lowered his voice like a joke. "Sounds interesting. Maybe I should invite him for coffee sometime." That line pierced Sienna's mask. She snapped her head toward Ethan, eyes slightly wider. "He probably does not have time." "Busy with what?" Sienna swallowed. "Lots of projects. You know." Then she changed the subject immediately. "You are sure you are not coming, right? If you came, I would be happy." Ethan looked straight at her. "You want me to come." Sienna gave a thin smile. "I mean, it is more fun with you." Ethan went quiet for a beat. The image of Sienna laughing with Noah in that cold hallway flashed again. He answered softly, but with steel underneath. "No. You go, I will rest." Sienna nodded, trying to keep her face normal. Ethan saw what it really was in her eyes. Not sadness that her husband would not come, but relief that he would not show up. Near noon, Sienna began getting ready. She pulled out a black dress Ethan had never seen. Tight fit, deep neckline, open back. Not the kind of dress for corporate obligation like she claimed. Ethan leaned on the doorway and watched her in the mirror. New dress. Sienna did not turn, only smiled at herself. "Bought it last month. I want to make a good impression on leadership." Ethan stepped closer, standing behind her. In the mirror they looked like a perfect couple, a beautiful wife, a calm husband, but inside Ethan, a silent storm was rising. A company party needs that much formality. Sienna paused, then spoke like she knew more than he did. "It is not a normal party. There might be big changes coming." Ethan looked deep into her eyes through the mirror, his smile like a cut. "Yeah, big changes." Sienna did not understand. She took it as support. Ethan knew the truth. He was the big change. While Sienna applied lipstick, adjusting her dress, thinking about Noah and the eyes of executives, Ethan turned and walked into his office, closing the door. He pulled out his phone and called his attorney, Linda Reyes. His voice was calm to the point of cruelty. "Linda, start preparing everything. I want it finished before Monday." On the other end, Linda paused, then answered. "Understood. I will send the final draft for your signature." Ethan ended the call and stood still for a few seconds, palm on the office door. Out there, Sienna was still preparing for a night she thought she would win. But she did not know the man she underestimated had stood up. No screaming, no begging. Just one step into the room at the right moment, and her entire world would collapse in silence. When Sienna shut the door and left the apartment, Ethan immediately did something she would never expect. He began locking down their entire life together, like closing a door that would never open again. The home turned silent in a way that felt eerie. Moments ago, there were heels tapping, a zipper sliding, Sienna asking quickly if he was sure he was not going. And now there was only Ethan standing alone in the living room, staring at the empty space she had passed through. No tears, no sighs, only one clear feeling. This had reached the point of no return. Ethan walked to the window. Down on the street, Sienna was calling a car. The black dress made her stand out in the crowd. She stood tall and confident, like someone walking into her own night of glory. Ethan knew there was no room for him in her mind right now. She did not look up. She did not glance back. She only looked forward, toward the party lights and Noah waiting. The car arrived. Sienna got in. The door closed. The vehicle pulled away, swallowing her into Manhattan's sea of lights. Ethan watched until it vanished, then turned his back as if he had just seen off a stranger. About 30 minutes later, he sat at his desk, his phone screen reflecting eyes cold as steel. He called again. Attorney Linda Reyes answered immediately, professional tone. "Ethan, I am listening." Ethan did not waste words. "Is everything ready?" Linda paused, as if leaving space for him to change his mind. Ethan gave her none. "It is ready," Linda said. "I finished the filings. We have strong evidence of the affair, call logs, internal communications, hotel records, and even a witness." Witness. That word struck Ethan like a stamp. No longer suspicion, no longer feeling. This was truth, packaged into documents. He closed his eyes for a beat and saw Sienna in her wedding dress, vows trembling with emotion. A beautiful image that now felt almost cruel. Ethan opened his eyes, voice steady. "Send me the final on Monday. I will sign immediately." Linda exhaled softly. "Ethan, are you sure?" 7 years. Maybe there is still a chance to. "No chance," Ethan cut in. "Not after she looked me in the face and lied every day." His voice was not loud, but each word fell like stone into water, impossible to take back. Linda lowered her voice. "Understood. I will prepare the filing schedule. How do you want to handle assets?" Ethan looked at the wedding photo on the shelf and answered, "By the law and by the truth, I will not let her take what I built with my entire life." The call ended. Ethan set the phone down but did not stand right away. He sat straight, hands on the desk. An ordinary man might shake, call back, beg, or explode. Ethan did not. He had sat across deals worth tens of millions. He had stared down people trying to corner him and still smiled. He knew the rules of power. And tonight, he would play by them. Ethan opened his laptop and called the bank. Customer service spoke politely. "Hello, Mr. Carter. How may I assist you?" Ethan stated each request slowly and decisively. "I want to freeze the joint account, activate transaction alerts, and confirm that transferring my personal assets into my separate account has been completed." The representative paused. "Sir, freezing the joint account will notify the Keo owner." Ethan looked up at the ceiling, the cold white light washing his face. "That is fine," he said. "She will understand soon." The bank confirmed and ended the call. Ethan walked through the living room. Everything was still as it was, cushions on the sofa, an unwashed coffee cup, Sienna's scarf draped over a chair. A shared life dressed in habits and pretending. Ethan knew it was only a shell. He entered the bedroom and opened the nightstand drawer, small papers, a notebook, random items. He looked at them like artifacts of a life past its expiration date, then closed the drawer. Then he put on the suit. The crisp white shirt settled on his shoulders like armor. The dark navy suit changed his silhouette instantly. He was no longer a husband left at home. No longer the man who endured and got underestimated. In the mirror, Ethan saw someone else, someone with real power. He tied the silver tie, buttoned the jacket, adjusted the cuffs, each movement precise and cold, as if he had practiced for this moment. When he was ready, he stared into the mirror, eyes dark. Sienna thought she was walking into a party to shine. In reality, she was walking into an ending. Ethan took his car keys and his phone. Before leaving, he made one more call, the front desk of Aurora Creative. The receptionist answered, "Aurora Creative, how may I help?" Ethan switched to a polished corporate voice. "I am calling to confirm tonight's schedule. Does marketing need to present before the party?" "No, sir," she answered quickly. "Everything was prepared earlier this week. Tonight is only a celebratory gala." Ethan gave a tiny smile. "Understood, thank you." He ended the call. Another lie from Sienna had been peeled away, as gently as pulling a single thread from fabric, and when that thread came loose, the whole garment would tear. Ethan stepped out of the apartment and locked the door. The click sounded dry and final. Not just locking the door, but locking a marriage that no longer contained honesty. Outside, Manhattan was still bright. Night wind hit his face, cold but clarifying. Ethan entered the elevator, eyes forward. Tonight, he would not come as a husband. He would come as the one in control. And when he appeared, every lie would fall like ash. He walked into the Gala lobby at the exact moment Sienna was leaning on Noah's arm, smiling as if her husband had never existed. And in that instant he understood. If he did not show up tonight, she would keep lying to him for hundreds more nights. The hotel sat in Midtown Manhattan, where golden light poured onto the street like honey and luxury cars glided past like glossy beasts. Inside, the grand lobby gleamed with cold marble, high ceilings, crystal chandeliers blazing like an artificial sky. Soft jazz drifted, each note slow as smoke. Ethan stepped through the glass doors and the air changed. Expensive perfume, wine, the scent of power, contracts, polished laughter without real warmth. The dark navy suit fit him like a declaration. The silver tie caught the light, sharpening his face. No one looked at him like a husband attending a party. They looked at him like someone important walking onto a stage. A tall woman in an elegant black dress approached immediately, her professional smile measured. "Mr. Carter, Victoria Harrington, CEO of Northbridge Media." She shook Ethan's hand, warm skin, firm grip, eyes sharp as a thin blade. "Welcome to our family." Ethan smiled, dipping his head slightly. "The honor is mine." Victoria guided him through the crowd like she was pulling the pivot point of the entire room. Greetings flew, handshakes lined up, eyes assessing like scanners. A middle-aged man introduced himself as Chief Operating Officer. A blonde woman was head of strategy, faces Sienna had spoken of like distant mountains impossible to touch. Ethan touched them here tonight. Beside Victoria walked Dana Whitmore, head of HR. Dana looked at Ethan like she was weighing a crucial piece. "I have heard a lot about you," she said. "This integration is a big move. I hope you will reset cultural standards for Aurora." Ethan nodded. Standards are non-negotiable, especially during transitions. Dana smiled slightly, catching the deeper meaning. "I am sure you will enjoy the energy of their marketing team. They have a lot of creative drive." Ethan replied evenly. "That is what I hear, especially their closeness. It seems very tight." Dana glanced at him, a flicker of understanding. She did not ask more. People like her knew that sometimes one short sentence said everything. Ethan let conversation flow, but his eyes did not stay still. They swept the room like a predator's radar. Then he saw the marketing table. He saw Sienna. She stood beside a man taller than her by half a head. Dark, wavy hair, a handsome face with the confidence of someone used to attention. Noah Blake. Sienna wore the black dress that had bothered Ethan since afternoon. Under chandelier light, her skin looked luminous. But what hurt Ethan most was not her beauty. It was her smile. Sienna was smiling, not a polite workplace smile, not a colleague smile, but a relaxed smile rising from the softest part of a woman. Noah said something. Sienna tilted her head back and laughed, then covered her mouth quickly as if afraid of showing too much emotion in public. But her eyes never left him. Noah leaned in and whispered close to her ear. Sienna did not pull away. Her eyes lit up, a brightness Ethan had once believed belonged only to him. Now it was in someone else's hands. In that moment, Ethan's heart did not shatter dramatically. It went numb enough that he could hear blood moving in his ears. He stood still for a beat. No one noticed. No one knew that the man standing beside the CEO, calm and polite, was watching his wife openly intimate with her ex in the middle of a corporate gala. Sienna still did not know Ethan was there. She still believed he was at home, on the sofa, drinking beer, watching football. She still believed he was a good, obedient husband. Ethan inhaled quietly and held the breath, because he knew if he breathed too hard he might show something. Victoria followed his gaze. "That is Aurora's marketing team," she said, "and your wife is there, right?" Ethan wore a perfect smile. "Yes, she does not know I came. I wanted a surprise." Victoria winked, a memorable one. Ethan answered lightly, "Absolutely." They led him to the head table, the central position, a leather chair facing the entire hall like a throne. Ethan sat. From there he could see everything. The marketing table sat to the right under a warm column light. Sienna and Noah had not yet sensed the shift in the air. They raised champagne, clinked softly, smiling like the world contained only the two of them. Noah's hand rested on Sienna's waist for a brief moment, testing boundaries. Sienna did not move away. She leaned closer. Not a mistake, not a moment of weakness, a relationship repeated enough to become natural. Dana Whitmore sat beside Ethan and spoke low. "They think no one notices." Ethan turned to her. "You knew." Dana shrugged like it was obvious. In an office, things like that are hard to hide, especially when they do not even try. Ethan stared at Sienna, a cold thought forming. So the whole company knew. Everyone except him. A humiliation that did not need a slap. It seeped in like smoke into every corner of pride. Ethan tightened his fingers around the water glass, then relaxed. He would not let emotion drive. He would let the plan drive, because tonight he was not here to beg for love. He was here to end a lie. On stage, the MC tested the mic. The stage lights brightened. People gathered. Laughter faded into scattered applause. Victoria leaned toward Ethan. "We are about to begin." Ethan nodded, eyes still on Sienna. She lifted her glass and smiled at Noah, then turned toward the stage as if ready for awards. She did not know that at the head table, the man she betrayed was sitting there. And in a few minutes, when the CEO called Ethan Carter, the spotlight would sweep the room like a blade. Then Sienna would face the truth. The husband she believed she could control was the man who could erase her entire world with one sentence. The name Noah was announced, and Sienna clapped like he was her whole world. But only minutes later, the entire room would watch her go rigid at a different name. The stage lights flared brighter, sweeping a cold white beam across the sea of people filling the grand hall. The background music cut out. The small laughs faded and then disappeared, replaced by ceremony. On stage, Victoria Harrington stood tall, microphone in hand like she was holding the hammer that set the order of the entire company. Her voice rang clear, bouncing off the marble walls and high ceiling. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here at Northbridge Media's annual gala. This is not just a party. This is the night we look back at the people who made this year possible." Applause rolled through the room like waves. Sienna sat at the marketing table, back straight, eyes bright. On her face was the smile of someone waiting to watch the man she cared about shine. Noah sat close beside her, leaning slightly toward her. He whispered something that made Sienna laugh softly, then quickly cover her mouth as if afraid she had shown too much emotion in public. But her gaze stayed fixed on the stage. Ethan sat at the head table, one hand resting lightly on his glass of water. His expression remained calm. No one could see that inside him. A river of molten heat was flowing, so intense it could burn everything if he let it. Victoria began reading out the names of standout individuals. Each time a name was called, applause rose. Someone walked up, bowed, accepted a certificate, then stepped down. Everything moved with smooth rhythm, like ritual, until Victoria paused for a beat. "And now, the Breakthrough Creativity Award of the Year," she said, goes to the person who brought bold new ideas and helped Aurora Creative's marketing team deliver campaigns that made a powerful impact. Sienna immediately sat straighter. Under the table, Noah lightly touched her fingers, like a reminder that his moment had arrived. Victoria looked down at her card. Congratulations to Noah Blake. The entire hall applauded. Sienna clapped harder than anyone around her. She clapped as if she did not care who saw. Her eyes shone, lips curved with a smile she could not hide. That was not the look of a proud colleague. That was the look of a woman in love. Noah stood. He adjusted his suit jacket and walked out with the confident stride of someone enjoying admiration. As he passed Sienna, he leaned down slightly, as if casually, his mouth close to her ear. Sienna lowered her head, smiling, cheeks warming. Ethan saw everything. He did not blink. Noah stepped onto the stage and accepted the certificate. Victoria shook his hand. Cameras flashed. Noah looked down into the crowd, searching for Sienna's eyes, and Sienna looked back, her gaze softening like it was melting. Ethan felt his chest tighten, not from jealousy, but from realizing what he lost was not only loyalty, it was respect. Noah bowed, stepped down. When he returned to the marketing table, Sienna's hand brushed his wrist like a private praise. They exchanged small smiles as if the award belonged to only them. Victoria continued the program, speaking of achievements, projects, expansion. Her tone shifted more serious, as if she was entering the real reason this night mattered. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, Northbridge Media has just completed the acquisition of Aurora Creative. This is a strategic move, and starting today we officially enter the integration phase. The hall grew quieter. Aurora employees began looking at one another, excitement mixed with unease. Sienna's grip tightened around her champagne glass. She was waiting to hear what she wanted to hear, an opportunity, a promotion, a step upward. Victoria paused, then smiled slightly. Therefore, tonight I am honored to introduce our new regional director, the person who will directly oversee integration between both sides, ensuring cultural standards, operational efficiency, and transparency throughout the organization. At the marketing table, Noah raised his eyebrows slightly. Sienna sat straighter, expecting an unfamiliar face. She did not think of Ethan at all. In her world, Ethan was simply the man at home watching football. Victoria extended her hand toward the head table. Please welcome Mr. Ethan Carter. In that instant, time seemed to stretch thin. Ethan stood, not fast, not rushed. He rose like someone who belonged to this stage all along. Applause erupted, not the polite kind, but the kind reserved for power. Ethan stepped away from the head table and walked straight toward the stage. The dark navy suit made him stand out. His posture was sharp. His steps were firm. Each step felt like a strike against the pride of everyone who had ever underestimated him. Then his gaze swept across the crowd until they stopped at the marketing table. Sienna lifted her head and went still. Her face drained as if all blood had been pulled away. The champagne glass in her hand trembled hard. She stopped clapping. She stopped breathing deeply. She just sat there with her eyes wide, staring at Ethan like he had stepped out of a nightmare into reality. Noah turned to her confused. He followed her gaze and froze too. Ethan reached the stage. Victoria shook his hand. The spotlight poured onto Ethan's face, sharpening his already cold eyes. He turned to face the entire hall. Sienna stared at him, no longer as a wife. She stared as someone who had just realized she chose the wrong opponent. Ethan took the microphone. He smiled. His voice was deep and clear. Hello, everyone. I'm Ethan Carter. And inside him, one sentence echoed like a verdict. The game is only beginning. Ethan had barely stepped down from the stage before Sienna wanted to disappear. But the crowd would not let her hide, and Ethan would not allow it either. The applause still lingered in the air as Ethan handed the microphone back to Victoria. He nodded in thanks, took a few handshakes, accepted congratulations. Everything looked like a perfect ceremony for a newly announced executive. But behind that polished surface was a cold current, running straight from his eyes to the marketing table. Sienna was still sitting there. She tried to keep her face normal, but panic leaked through every crack. Her lips had lost color. Her hand held the champagne glass so tightly her knuckles were white. She looked down, then back up, like someone plunged into freezing water and searching for something to grab. Noah beside her kept his mouth tight, eyes darting fast. Minutes ago, he was a winner on stage. Now, he looked like a man whose mask had been ripped off under bright lights. Ethan did not walk directly to the marketing table. Not yet. He moved slowly, extremely slowly. He stopped at a few groups, exchanged small talk, shook hands. That was how a man behaved when he had sat at high-level negotiations, never letting emotion drag him into rushing, always controlling pace, and as he walked, people's eyes began following him. Everyone is curious when power and private life collide. Dana Whitmore passed by Ethan and leaned in close, planning a bigger surprise too. Ethan only smiled. "I just want to greet the marketing team. That is what I should do." Dana looked at him with an expression that was half warning, half encouragement. She knew this would not be a casual handshake. Ethan kept walking. Every step closer to the marketing table made Sienna's heartbeat messier. She tried to say something to Noah, but her throat was tight. Noah whispered quickly back, too low for others to hear, but his face had lost all confidence. The marketing table was crowded. Young employees were still laughing, unaware a storm was approaching. But when Ethan stopped behind one of them, the entire table slowly fell silent. Smiles faded as if someone lowered the volume. Ethan stood there, tall and calm. He placed one hand on the back of an empty chair near the head of the table, his eyes sweeping over them like he was reading a list. "Good evening, everyone," he said, warm but sharp. "I'm Ethan Carter. It's a pleasure to meet Aurora's marketing team." A young woman jumped up first, forcing professionalism. "Congratulations, Mr. Carter. I'm Mia Reynolds, analyst." Ethan nodded. "I read your report. It was very good." Mia blushed and sat down. Immediately others rose to introduce themselves, names, titles. Ethan listened like a true executive, but his eyes never left 2 points. Sienna. Noah. Sienna stood last. She forced a smile. Ethan. Her voice was dry and smaller than usual, like she did not know whether to call him husband or boss. Ethan looked at her, his smile perfectly polite, but with no intimacy left. Sienna. Just her name, but it pinned her like a nail. Then Ethan turned to Noah. "And you are?" Noah had already stood. He extended his hand, trying to keep his posture. "Noah Blake. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Carter." Ethan shook his hand. Noah's palm was damp with sweat. "You're Noah Blake, creative director, right?" "Yes, sir." Ethan nodded, voice light as conversation. "How long have you been at Aurora?" Noah swallowed. "About 4 months." 4 months, Ethan repeated, then slowly turned to Sienna, his eyes softened in a way that felt terrifying. "Interesting. I remember you said Noah joined only a few months ago." The air froze solid. Several employees exchanged glances. A strained smile flickered and died. Mia awkwardly lowered her eyes. An older man cleared his throat like he wanted to cut through the silence. Sienna stood frozen, lips parting, but no words coming. Ethan did not stop. He tilted his head like he remembered something small. "Oh, and you also said you had to arrive early tonight to rehearse a presentation, right?" Sienna blinked rapidly. Noah stared down. Ethan smiled. "I called the front desk to confirm. There's no presentation at all." The sentence dropped onto the table like a heavy stone. No one smiled anymore, no one spoke. Only distant jazz music, like it came from another world. And in that moment, Sienna understood Ethan did not come to play nice. He came to strip away every lie in front of others, layer by layer, until she had nowhere left to stand. Sienna suddenly stood up. "Excuse me, I need to go to the restroom." Her voice sounded breathless. Then she almost ran away from the table. Ethan did not look after her immediately. He looked at Noah. Then he said low, but clearly enough for Noah to hear, "We need to talk privately." Noah went rigid, and the marketing table understood that this party had just changed owners. Ethan pulled Noah away from the crowd, and Noah understood something terrifying. This man did not come to get jealous, he came to end him. The grand hall was still noisy with clinking glasses and polished laughter, but in the shadowed corner near the service hallway, the air was colder. The light here was not golden. It was white and sharp, like interrogation lighting. Ethan walked ahead without looking back. He only angled his shoulders a signal. Noah followed, every step like stepping on thin ice. He tried to keep his hands steady, but sweat soaked his collar. In Noah's head, scenarios crashed into each other. Fired at the party. Humiliated in front of everyone. Investigated. Career destroyed. Pulled into a scandal too big for internal communications to cover. Noah had never been this afraid. Minutes ago, he stood on stage winning. Now, the world had flipped with one move from Ethan. They stopped in a hidden corner beside a stone wall where the jazz became distant echo. Ethan turned around. His eyes held no anger, no heat. They were cold enough to make Noah want to step back. Noah swallowed. "Mr. Carter?" Ethan cut him off with 2 words. "Stop acting." 2 words, but they slammed shut the last door of hope. Noah blinked quickly, trying to keep calm. "I don't understand what you mean." Ethan tilted his head, voice deep but sharp. "You do understand." Noah froze. In that moment, Ethan realized what disgusted him most was not Noah's looks or talent. It was the confidence of a man who believed he would never be punished. That kind of confidence belonged to people used to bending rules. Ethan stepped closer by half a step, not to intimidate physically, but to force Noah to face truth. "I know you and Sienna have been involved," Ethan said. "No detours. I know you and her checked in and checked out together almost every day for 4 months. I know you eat lunch together, stay late together, and I know your strategic meetings every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5 in the small meeting room on the 8th floor. Noah's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Ethan continued, still calm, like reading a report. I also know the expense claims labeled Client Walkthrough, and I know the small hotel on West 37th Street, the room you booked on your own card again and again, very consistent, very careless. That last word hit like a slap. Noah stumbled back, his back touching the stone wall. His eyes widened. You were watching me." Ethan stared straight at him. "No, you left the trail yourself." Ethan's voice was not loud, but each word was a nail. Noah trembled. He had never imagined being exposed through data. He thought Ethan was a soft husband, a busy man, someone who could be controlled with a few sweet lines. Noah was wrong, painfully wrong. Ethan lowered his voice, and the calm made him even more frightening. "I don't care if you truly love her or not. I don't care when it started. The only thing I care about is that you used the company to cover it, and you did it with my wife." Noah's lips shook. "I'm sorry." Ethan looked at him like a defective product. Sorry doesn't fix consequences. The air thickened. Noah could hear his own heartbeat. He knew what Ethan could do. 1 email to compliance, 1 meeting with HR, 1 sentence to leadership. Noah would lose everything, not only his job, but his reputation. In marketing, reputation is oxygen. Ethan delivered the final terms. "You have 2 options." Noah lifted his red eyes. "What options?" Ethan raised 1 finger. "First, tomorrow you submit your resignation for personal reasons. Leave clean, no drama, no explanations, no contact with Sienna." Then Ethan raised a 2nd finger. "Second, I open an official investigation. I request a full review of meeting room logs, expense claims, internal communications. I request compliance interviews, and I hand all of it to HR. Do you know what that means?" Noah swallowed. throat burning dry. "It means I won't just lose my job. I'll be marked. I'll never lift my head in this industry again." Ethan's gaze did not change. Noah's fists clenched. A part of him wanted to fight, but then he looked into Ethan's eyes and saw no blind rage, only a cold, calculated decision. No retreat, no negotiation. Noah collapsed right there, voice shrinking. "I'll resign. I'll submit it tomorrow morning." Ethan nodded, smart. Noah exhaled like he escaped death. Then he remembered Sienna. He lifted his head, voice trembling, trying to grasp at humanity. What about Sienna? What will you do to her? That question came from instinct. Maybe Noah thought he was protecting her. Maybe he was only afraid she would drag him down again. But either way, Ethan gave him no right to participate. Ethan tilted his head, eyes icy. "That's not your business." Noah stopped breathing. Ethan stepped closer, voice low, like the final warning. "You do your part. Leave clean. If you make noise, if you contact her, if you try to turn this into some tragic love story, I will not give you a second chance." Noah nodded repeatedly. "I understand, I swear." Ethan stepped back like a deal had been closed. He did not need to slam a table. He did not need a fight. He only needed to set rules. And the rule breaker had to leave the stage. Ethan placed one hand on Noah's shoulder, a light touch that made Noah flinch like he was shocked. Then Ethan raised his speaking volume slightly, enough for nearby people to hear, as if this were only normal work conversation. "I look forward to seeing your creative proposal, Noah. Good luck." Noah stood stiff, face white, nodding like a machine. "Yes, thank you, sir." Ethan turned and walked away, calm like a man who had finished a meeting. But inside Noah, those footsteps were not shoes. They were a verdict. Sienna's hand was shaking as she reapplied lipstick when Ethan appeared behind her, and one sentence from him made her blood turn to ice. "Come with me," he said. The women's restroom sat deep along an inner hallway, separated from the noisy ballroom by thick carpet and cold white lighting. Here, the jazz was only a distant echo. No laughter, no clinking glasses, only the faint drip of water and the soft tremble of mirrors whenever a stall door shut. Sienna stood in front of the mirror with a red lipstick in her hand. She stared at herself like she was looking at a stranger. Her makeup was still flawless. The dress was still perfect, but her eyes were not. Those eyes were panicked. Out there, in the crowd, she had believed she was in control. She thought she arranged everything, her husband at home, Noah by her side, the glittering party, a promotion within reach. A clean plan. Then Ethan showed up, not as a husband, but as the man who could destroy everything with a single look. She heard the sound of footsteps coming closer, steady, measured. The steps of someone who did not hesitate. She flinched and turned. Ethan was there, behind her in the mirror. The dark navy suit made him look like steel. His face showed no anger. That was what frightened her most. "Come with me," Ethan repeated, low and short. Sienna's lips moved. "Ethan, I... Ethan did not wait. He turned and walked first, leaving behind a cold space and a familiar scent that now felt like an accusation. Sienna had no choice but to follow. They passed through a side corridor where the ceiling lights were pale, almost clinical. At the end was a quiet corner near a fire exit door, nearly empty of people. Ethan stopped. Sienna faced him, both hands clenched together. In this moment, she wanted to speak fast. She wanted to invent a believable story. She wanted to cry and trade tears for pity. She wanted to do what she always did when she needed to escape an argument. But Ethan's eyes cut off every retreat. Ethan lifted a hand as if to stop her. No explanations. His voice was cold like glass. Sienna froze. Tears gathered, but she tried to swallow them down. "I did not know you would come," she said, voice shaking. Ethan stared at her. "Right, you thought I would stay home. That sentence fell like stone. Sienna shut her eyes for a beat. In her mind, she saw Ethan on the sofa watching football. She had believed that image like it was guaranteed. Ethan continued, "Still, even, I have enough proof about you and Noah." Sienna opened her eyes, face turning white. "What? What are you saying?" Ethan did not move. "I know the attendance logs, I know the meeting rooms. I know the emails. I know the hotel." Each word hit like a hammer. As Sienna stumbled back half a step, her back nearly touching the fire exit. "No, it is not what you think." Ethan tilted his head, eyes darkening. "Not what I think." "Then what is it?" Sienna choked. She searched for a sentence that sounded less ugly. She wanted to say it was only feelings, only a mistake, only a weak moment. But Ethan did not let her paint it pretty. "How long?" Ethan asked, quieter but sharper. Sienna stayed silent. Ethan stepped forward, one step, not too close, but close enough to make her feel pinned. "How long?" Sienna swallowed hard. Tears spilled, hot on her cheeks. 3 months. The answer was as small as a dropped pin. But to Ethan, it sounded like a door slamming shut. 3 months, he repeated, since he'd joined the company. Sienna nodded, shoulders trembling as if she were cold. Ethan inhaled deeply. For the first time that night, pain flickered across his face. Pain, but it did not soften him. It only roughened his voice by a fraction. "I saw the signs, the overtime, the weekends, the late-night messages. You thought I was too stupid to notice." Sienna shook her head fast, terrified. No, I did not think you were stupid. I just... Just what?" Ethan cut in. "You just needed another man to feel alive again." Sienna broke into sobs. "Ethan, listen to me. Our marriage... Lately you were always busy, always at the company. Even when you came home it was like you were not really there. I tried to talk, but you always said later." She spoke quickly, dumping her guilt as if it could open an escape route. Deep down, she still believed that if she said reason, Ethan would soften. But Ethan looked at her like she was offering a cheap defense. "So, you cheated," he said slowly. "Because I was busy working. You had the right to lie to me every day. No, I am not saying that, but that is what you did." Ethan's voice dropped lower, dangerous. Sienna collapsed inside herself. She realized every reason was worthless now. She was wrong beyond denial, and she had been caught under the brightest lights of her company's most glamorous night. Ethan watched her. His eyes were no longer angry. They were finished. "You know, I was going to surprise you tonight." Sienna looked up, eyes red. "What surprise?" Ethan let out a soft laugh with no warmth. "I planned to tell you. I am the new regional director. I planned to raise a glass with you, go home, and start a new chapter as husband and wife. But you chose to lie to me." Sienna's breath hitched as if she had been struck. "Ethan, please, give me one chance." Ethan shook his head. "Noah will resign tomorrow." Sienna went still. She understood that was not a guess. It was a sentence already decided. Ethan continued firm. "And you, no matter how talented you are, you have no future at Northbridge anymore." Sienna shook her head, desperate. "You cannot. That is my career." Ethan stared at her, eyes ice. "Did you think about my career when you slept with him?" The question hit her like a slap. She sobbed and could not answer. Ethan slid a hand into his suit pocket, taking nothing out, yet his voice sounded like he was holding a stack of papers. "My lawyer has prepared the divorce filing. You will receive it on Monday." Sienna froze. Divorce. The word exploded silently inside her head. 7 years, Ethan, she whispered. "We have been together 7 years." Ethan looked at her and his voice slowed lower, like the grief of a man who truly loved once. "This was not a mistake, Sienna." He stepped closer and spoke each word clearly. It was a chain of choices. "You chose to betray me every day. You chose to lie to me every day. You chose to put another man above your vows. That is not an accident, that is a decision." Sienna covered her face, shaking, sobbing hard. Ethan turned away. But before he left, he paused and delivered the final line, calm to the point of cruelty. "Now, go back to the party and keep smiling." His eyes flicked to her black dress like he was looking at a mask. "Because this is the last night you will stand there as an employee of this company." Ethan walked off, his shoes tapping on the carpet like the sound of an ending. Sienna stayed in the cold hallway corner, as if all the lights of Manhattan had gone out in her life. When the party ended, Sienna thought the nightmare was over. But the real nightmare began the moment she saw Ethan turn away with no intention of taking her home. The clock in the hotel lobby was close to midnight. The chandeliers still blazed, but the energy was gone. Tables were scattered with half-finished drinks. Small groups said goodbye with polite hugs. The music faded like a rope being pulled to its final inch. Ethan stood by the head table, accepting farewell greetings from department heads. His face remained calm and professional, as if tonight was just another gala. No one knew that inside him, an entire life had been cut away from its past. Sienna returned to the ballroom after the confrontation. She stood in her place again, held her champagne again, smiled at the right moments, but it was the smile of someone already dead inside. When people asked if she was okay, she only nodded. When they congratulated her and said her husband was incredible, she forced a grin that felt like salt in an open wound. Noah stood in a different corner. He avoided Sienna's eyes. He avoided everyone's eyes. Like a man whose spine had been yanked out of his arrogance. Now and then he tugged his tie like it was choking him. He understood he had only hours left before he lost everything. Sienna still did not fully accept it. Not because she was unintelligent, but because panic made her cling to her last thread of hope, that Ethan was only angry, that he would cool down, the 7 years would soften him. But Ethan did not soften. When the final guests started leaving, Sienna could not take it anymore. She walked fast to him and stopped in front of him. "Can we go home together?" Her voice was small and rough. Her eyes were red. She tried to keep her dignity, as if she kept a little form, her life had not fully collapsed. Ethan looked at her, expression flat. "No." One word. "Clean. Cold." Sienna blinked rapidly. "What did you say?" Ethan adjusted a button on his jacket, voice even. "I still have things to handle. Go home first." Sienna felt like she had been shoved down a step. She glanced around. A few people were still nearby. She was afraid they heard, afraid of being seen with pity. She lowered her voice, almost begging. "Ethan, please, give me one chance to explain." Ethan cut her off. "Tomorrow you pack your things." Sienna went stiff. "Pack my things." Ethan continued. No change in his face. "I will stay at the hotel for a few days. You have time to move out of the apartment." "Move out." The 2 words made Sienna's legs go weak. She gripped the edge of the table like she was holding the edge of a cliff. "But that is our home." Ethan met her eyes, voice slower, clear like the last blade. "No, that is my home." Then he added, cold like a legal note, "Premarital property, you remember?" Sienna turned pale. Of course she remembered. Ethan had bought the apartment before they married, but back then she treated it as something small. She believed marriage would make everything shared. She never imagined that detail would become a knife. Sienna let out a broken sound. "Are you going to throw me out on the street?" Ethan looked at her. There was no pleasure in revenge. Only truth. "You betrayed me, Sienna." His voice was not loud, but every word landed. "You chose this. Now you face the consequences." Sienna opened her mouth to say more, but Ethan had already turned away. He walked past her straight to the exit without looking back. Sienna stood there in the glittering lobby that looked like gold, yet felt like a dark room. She watched Ethan's back. The man who used to be her support was now the storm. She chased him a few steps, voice cracking. "Ethan, please, don't." "I'm begging you." Ethan did not stop. He lifted a hand for the valet. One small gesture, but it said everything. The conversation was over. Sienna stopped. Around her were still polite goodbyes, soft laughter, heels clicking on marble. But she could not hear anything except one sentence repeating inside her head. "Tomorrow, you pack your things." That night, Ethan drove back to the apartment. Manhattan slid past his windshield like a cold film reel. Red lights, green lights, blurred silhouettes. Ethan thought about what to bring if he stayed at a hotel: the laptop, documents, a few suits. He did not think about Sienna. He would not allow himself to. But when he opened the apartment door, the impossible happened. Sienna was sitting on the sofa. She had come back first. She had left the party early. She sat like a shadow, face pale, eyes swollen, clearly having cried for a long time. When she saw Ethan step in, she stood quickly like someone waiting for mercy. "Ethan." Her voice was so hoarse it barely sounded like her. "We need to talk." Ethan closed the door slowly. The sound of the lock felt like a final period. He looked at her, calm, but with absolutely no love left. "I think we have talked enough." Sienna stepped forward, trembling. "No. You said it. I did not even get to say anything." Ethan placed his keys on the table. "Fine." He lifted his eyes. "Say it." And in that moment, Sienna understood her last chance was burning down. But she still ran toward it like a drowning person grabbing a rope. Ethan stood there, steady as stone, because he knew that no matter what she said, this marriage was already over. Sienna had barely said, "I am pregnant," before the room seemed to lose all its air, and Ethan understood her final twist was not to save love, but to hold on to a life that was slipping out of her hands. The living room lights were still warm gold, but the glow no longer felt comforting. It fell onto the floor like thin dust. The Manhattan apartment that once felt familiar now turned into a courtroom. No judge, no gavel, only a man standing tall with eyes like ice and a woman trembling in the middle of the truth. Sienna stood in front of the sofa, both hands clenched tight as if she was afraid her body would collapse. She had said the words, and regret hit her instantly, but it was too late. Some sentences, once they leave your mouth, become stones. They drop to the bottom and cannot be taken back. Ethan stared at her. Not like a husband, like a man verifying data. Pregnant. His voice was low, dry, short. A question that sounded simple, yet cut into Sienna like a blade. Sienna nodded again and again, tears spilling. "Yes, I just found out. About 3 weeks. I did not dare say it early because I was not fully sure either." Ethan's mouth tightened. 3 weeks. He repeated it like he was reading a line from a report. In his mind, everything began to calculate. Time, late nights, fake meetings. All of it stacked together until it formed the one question he did not want to ask, but had to. Ethan stepped forward a fraction. "Whose is it?" The air froze. Sienna's mouth opened like she had been slapped. Her eyes widened in shock, then pain. "What are you asking?" Ethan did not back away. "I said, whose is it?" His voice stayed calm, but carried the sharp steel of a man betrayed to the bone. Sienna broke into sobs. "Yours, of course it is yours." Ethan let out a soft laugh. Empty. "Of course." He stared into her, each word dropping like ice. "You slept with Noah for 3 months. You lied to me every day. And you still want me to believe this baby can only be mine." Sienna trembled. She stepped back like she was pushed toward a wall. "Ethan, no. I was wrong. But Noah and I were always careful, always. We always used protection, I swear." Ethan nodded slowly, as if confirming something bitter. "Oh, great. You cheated and still tried to be responsible." Sienna covered her face, crying hard, forcing words through the sobs. "I know you do not believe me. I understand. But the baby is innocent. We can do a test. I will prove it. I just want you to know I am not making this up." Ethan looked at her for a long time. Inside him, anger wanted to explode, but something heavier pressed it down. Responsibility. Ethan could be cold, but he was not the kind of man who ran. He released a long breath. "Fine." Sienna lifted her head like she saw light. Ethan continued decisive. "Tomorrow you go to the clinic. I go with you. And you will do a paternity test as soon as possible." Sienna nodded fast, afraid he would change his mind. "Yes, I agree, I will do it." Ethan looked at her. His eyes did not soften. "But listen carefully, Sienna." He stepped half a step closer, voice low, cold. "Whether the baby is mine or not, this marriage is still over." Sienna froze, hope in her eyes shattered like glass. "No, Ethan, please." Ethan shook his head. "I will fulfill my duty as a father. I will support the child. I will work with you on a custody agreement, but I will not come back." Sienna sank onto the sofa. Inside her something snapped. Not love snapping. The final plan snapping. Ethan picked up his keys. "I will stay at the hotel. Tomorrow at 10 in the morning I will pick you up." He turned and walked out without waiting for an answer. The door closed behind him. The sound landed like a final period. That night, Ethan lay in a cold hotel room, staring at a white ceiling. He could not sleep. He remembered the early days of marriage, when Sienna used to place a hand on his chest and whisper, "I trust you. You make me feel safe." Now he understood. A person can feel safe in your arms and still betray you. The next morning, Ethan arrived exactly on time. Sienna was already waiting. She wore simple clothes now, no pride left. Her face looked hollow, as if she had fought a war alone through the night. They walked beside each other but did not touch. In the car, no one spoke. At the clinic, Sienna registered. Ethan sat in the waiting area, watching other families. Men holding their wives' hands, smiling, nervous, excited. Ethan sat upright with hands clasped, like a man standing outside his own life. The ultrasound confirmed Sienna was about 3 weeks pregnant. Sienna looked at Ethan, voice hoarse. "Do you want the test immediately?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, do it." 2 days later, the result came back. The baby was Ethan's. Sienna cried. This time it was relief. She clung to that truth like a lifeline. "Do you believe me now?" she asked, trembling. Ethan stared at the paper, then at her. "I believe the baby is mine." He paused, then said the words that broke Sienna completely. "But I still do not believe you." Sienna's throat tightened. Ethan stood. "We will make a parenting plan. My lawyer will contact you. I will take most of the financial responsibility, but you and I are done." Sienna nodded through tears, like someone forced to accept a sentence. Time moved. Noah submitted his resignation the next day, exactly as Ethan demanded. He disappeared from Aurora like a shadow erased. No goodbye, no looking back. Sienna took sick leave, then quietly sent in her own resignation. She left without noise. The career she once believed would shine forever shrank like a candle in wind. A few months later, the divorce was finalized. Sienna moved closer to her family. Ethan continued overseeing the integration, cold and efficient. People respected him even more because no one saw him break. No one saw him lose control. The day the baby was born, Ethan stood outside the delivery room for hours. When the nurse carried the newborn out, Ethan saw familiar eyebrows. A tiny, wrinkled face screaming its first cry. Ethan held the child. The small, warm weight softened one corner of his heart. Not because of Sienna, because of life, because of responsibility, because of a new chapter that had nothing to do with betrayal. Years later, Ethan remarried. Sienna rebuilt her life too. They were no longer husband and wife, but they learned to become parents. Visit schedules, holidays, short calls. Everything became necessary compromise. One late night, Ethan sat alone in his office staring at the city lights that looked the same as ever. He remembered the Gala, Sienna's face when she realized who he was, Noah's expression when he understood he had chosen the wrong opponent. Ethan had no regrets, because sometimes revenge is not screaming. It is walking in at the right moment, saying the right sentence, then walking away. Calm, planned, final. If you have ever been betrayed, remember this. Do not become the victim who screams. Become the person who controls the ending. And if you enjoy marriage drama stories like this one, leave a comment and tell me what kind of revenge you want the next character to deliver. Do not forget to like and subscribe so you do not miss the most intense revenge stories and life stories coming next.